This is Lupita Mañana, Chapter 2, Part 2, starting on page 27. The late September sun was very hot on her back as she and Salvador turned west toward the ocean from the main street. Gringo cars were parked on the dirt road that led to the sea as they had been on the paved Avenida Juarez. Though she had not lifted her eyes at the tourists, Lupita could hear their voices talking the harsh-sounding Yankee language that was full of strange noises. What were they to her? Some Mexicans, those who did not like them, called them ranas pecosas, freckled frogs, but she didn't care about them one way or the other. La Estrella lay in her accustomed place at the mole, the wharf that ran out into the harbor. Even though it was just a fishing boat, not a charter boat that took tourists from Marlin, Captain Ortega kept it well. It didn't have a patched hull or old battered house doors like so many fishermen's boats. It was even neatly painted white with dark red trim around the bow. Salvador walked boldly toward the boat, but then he stopped suddenly at the gangplank. "Salvador," hissed Lupita behind him, "you must ask." Suddenly, she saw Paco Ortega get up off a coil of rope on the boat's prow. He came to the rail and stood looking down on Salvador and Lupita. He shook his head, frowning in warning. Then he called out, "Papa, Salvador Torres has come." A minute later, the forecastle door of La Estrella opened and Captain Ortega stepped out onto the deck. A big, broad-shouldered man. He pushed Paco out of his way. Then, attracting the attention of everyone on the muelle, Ortega shouted, "You, Salvador Torres, don't you come aboard here. Don't you ever speak to my daughter again. She doesn't want you. I don't want you. I won't have you, a lazy, no-good vago, in my crew. Go away." Lupita saw Salvador move toward the gangplank, then stop suddenly and tense, clenching his fists. Quickly, he turned on his heel and walked past her down the muelle. His face was buried in his turned-up shirt collar. "Salvador!" she cried after him, but he didn't turn around. "The money! Papa's money!" Proud Salvador hadn't even asked for it. Lupita stepped forward, her heart hammering in her chest. She would have to ask for it then. But she didn't need to, after all. Captain Ortega shouted after Salvador, "Hey, vago! Don't forget the money your father earned. Come back and get it." The captain reached into his pocket and came nearer the wharf to throw a handful of pesos. The coins scattered over the mole. He laughed and bellowed, "Don't you want the money? Come back and pick it up." Lupita stared after Salvador, who was a good distance away by now. She glanced at the laughing Ortega, then she knelt down and picked up all the pesos for which Papa had worked so hard. How fortunate none had fallen into the water beside the boat. When she had them in her hand, she rose. Lupita stood for a moment, looking up into Captain Ortega's fierce dark eyes. Then she gazed past him at shame-faced Paco. No, she would not say gracias to the Ortegas. The money was Papa's. Squaring her thin shoulders and holding the money tightly, Lupita ran down the wharf after Salvador. Mama would be happy to have the money. She didn't have to be told how badly Ortega had treated Salvador, unless he himself chose to tell her. At the end of the wharf, Lupita caught up with her brother. "I have Papa's money," she told him breathlessly. He acted as if he had not heard her. Dortea's mother could have done it. She could have measured Papa with a black ribbon so he would die because she hates me. Lupita, I'm finished with all the Ortegas. Even Paco. If he comes near me again, I'll fight him. What of Dortea, Salvador? He gave his sister a look of pain. They will never let me see her again. She told me once if she could not marry me, she'd want to become a nun. Lupita sighed. Perhaps Mañana will be better for you and her, Salvador. Angry, scornful laughter burst from Salvador. Mañana, mañana, mañana. Always it will be better tomorrow, he shouted at a shocked Lupita. Then he started to run, pounding toward the town. After Lupita's supper of beans and rice that evening, Uncle Antonio arrived with other men to say the rosary for the second night. When the men had gone home, he remained to talk with Mama and Salvador, and Lupita again was sent to put the smaller ones to bed. After she'd settled an argument about which star in the evening sky was Papa's, Lupita came back to sit by the half-open door. She heard Mamma say in a queer, dull tone, "Si, Antonio, you are right. Ay de mi. Shall I call Lupita in?" "Si," called the girl. "Lupita, your uncle wants you." Leaving her stool, Lupita came at once into the room and stood before her uncle. "Tell her, Antonio," suggested Mamma. Wizened Uncle Antonio, with the drooping mustache, said, "Lupita, your mamma and I talked this morning while you and Salvador were at Captain Ortega's boat. Then I spoke with a moneylender. He will lend her 800 pesos, and will give her a year to pay it back before he takes this house. He is being very generous, because he was a friend of your father's." Bueno, Mamma was going to get some money then. Lupita was sorry, though, that she would have to borrow it. "Lupita," Uncle Antonio cleared his throat, "your mother cannot pay the moneylender back out of what she earns at Senor Aguilar's hotel, and feed and keep you all too. You and your brother Salvador must help her." "I'll help her, Uncle Antonio. I'll do whatever I can," he said softly. "Lupita, you and Salvador cannot earn enough money here in Ensenada, young as you are, so something must be arranged for you." Lupita looked at Salvador. He had a very strange, shocked expression on his face. What was happening now? "I could sell lottery tickets," she cried out. "I could get some piglets and raise them to sell, and I could keep hens for the eggs they will lay. I could sell oysters with you from your cart, Uncle Antonio. Perhaps I can even embroider for a shop. I can do many things." "Those things will not bring in enough money. If you did all those things, Lupita, and Salvador found work too, it would still not be enough to pay off the moneylender. You could not earn enough together to replace what my brother Hernando made on Ortega's boat." Mamma explained. "It seems I must tell you what is arranged, Lupita. Most of the money I am to borrow is for you and Salvador. It is for you and him to go over there and find work." Stunned, Lupita stared at her mother. "Over there? No, it could not be." Her ears were playing her false. "You two should go at once," Uncle Antonio said. "The day after tomorrow, at the latest. See, you must go to the United States." "The day after tomorrow?" Lupita echoed. Mamma's tired eyes were full of tears. "Lupita, you and Salvador will go to your Aunt Consuelo. You will write her a letter tonight and tell her that you and Salvador are coming. With her help, you will surely find work and be able to send money to me. You must not impose on Consuelo, but earn your own way. She is in Indio, in California." Lupita cried out, "Where is Indio, Mamma?" "I do not know. You must find it. I know only it is in the gringo state of California." "How do we get to the United States?" Lupita asked frantically. "I do not know that either. You and Salvador must find a way. I know that many others from Mexico have gone there." Mamma reached out and pulled Lupita to her, stroking her hair. "Do not tremble so, Lupita Mañana. Do not think I want you and Salvador to leave me. But if we are going to live, you must go to California the way Consuelo went 20 years ago. It will hurt me if you and Salvador do not go willingly." Lupita looked past her mother's arm at her brother, who was leaning back against the wall in his chair. He had taken out the knife Dorothea had given him and was staring at it. There was no expression on his face at all. "Salvador?" she said questioningly. He looked up at her and answered sharply, "Mamma and Uncle Antonio are right. I'll go to this Indio, and I'll work there, and I'll grow rich and send money home, and someday I'll come back here in an automobile, a big one like the gringos drive. Then I'll show everybody who Salvador Torres is." He was talking bravely, just as she thought he would. Lupita said nothing, but her grief, bruised mind repeated, "Papa, Papa." First had come the great wave, then Captain Ortega's terrible unkindness, and now this dreadful blow. She must leave not only her family and town, but her country as well. "Si, si, Lupita Mañana." Her mother patted her shoulder. "You will have Salvador to look after you. You will have your Aunt Consuelo and her important husband to take care of you also. If only my two brothers had lived, they would help us now. So would my other sister if she was not a nun. Your father's sisters are in Loreto, and poor as we. Uncle Antonio has helped us as much as he can. Do not weep. You will come back here to Mexico, Lupita. It is not as if you will be gone forever. Uncle Antonio gently added, Many have gone over there. Entire families have gone. Many have been younger than the two of you. Lupita held back the questions rising to her lips. Why had Aunt Consuelo never returned to Mexico? How many did they know who had come back? Her mother tried to smile and look into her daughter's eyes. I have heard from the waiters at the hotel that other families in Ensenada receive money from relatives who have gone to the United States to work. You and your brother are strong and clever. Consuelo will be pleased with you, and her pocho husband will see what fine Mexican children Hernando and I have. Her voice trailed off as she brought her apron up to her eyes. When Uncle Antonio had left and Mamma had gone into the bedroom to nurse the baby, Lupita went over to Salvador, who was sitting in his chair. I know you, Salvador. You pretend to want to go away and come back rich so the Ortegas will be unhappy they did not let you marry Dorotea. You talk very bravely, Salvador, but I think you are afraid as I am also. Life is going to be strange over there. It is Yankee land, and they are different from us. Lupita clasped her hands. Maybe they will not like us. Salvador raised round, mournful eyes to meet his sister's. See, I do pretend to want to go to please Mamma and Uncle Antonio. They spoke of to me of our going before you came out. I've had some time to think. Salvador's voice dropped. Lupita, we must go. We are the oldest. We must help Mamma get out of the hands of the devil who lends money. I know him. He was no friend to Papa. He is no friend to anyone. Yes, it will be strange over there, and not easy, but something else will not be easy either. Lupita looked at him. What is that? Salvador shook his head slowly from side to side. Lupita, you know nothing. You speak only with the family and other girls here in Ensenada, not with people who know important things. I must tell you that it is very difficult to cross over into the United States. They will not simply let us walk across and go to work. Why not? Salvador gripped one of her wrists. Listen to me. I know that the gringos do not want us unless we have special papers for them that allow us to live there. I have heard men talk about that sort of thing. You and I can visit a short time as the gringo tourists visit here in Mexico, but the gringos do not want us to live and work in their country. We are not going to be welcome. Not even with Aunt Consuelo? Lupita, all I know is that even if we can live with her and her pocho husband, we will be breaking the law. Ay de mi, we could go to jail over there. Lupita wailed softly. See, we could. Now you know. Salvador laughed his scornful laugh. Now tell me that mañana will be better, Lupita.